We continue our discussion on Wordnet and words and disambiguation. In the last class, we saw that one of the cardinal and absolutely critical problems of natural language processing is word sense disambiguation. It is one of the most amazing feats of human mind that we understand written and spoken communication in spite of an enormous number of possibilities that exist because of multiple meanings of words which compose a sentence. It is equally amazing that we produce correct sentences choosing the words in their appropriate context. And therefore, any system that proposes to implement natural language processing on a computer has to address very seriously the question of word sense disambiguation. We also understood that the problem of word sense disambiguation became much more well founded and much more well understood when this immensely important lexical resource called Wordnet was created. A Wordnet is a graph like structure of nodes and arcs, where the nodes are concepts or meanings of words expressed in the form of sets of synonymous words, and arcs are semantic relations. We will revise these concepts once again, and we will once again understand the constructs of Wordnet, and then move on to how words and disambiguation algorithms are created using Wordnet. So, in our discussion of Wordnet, we said that lexical matrix forms a very fundamental structure where the matrix has rows which are representatives of meanings. So, assume our conceptual world has small m number of meanings. So, m 1, m 2, m 3 up to m m are the rows in this matrix. How these meanings are represented, what kind of IDs or identifiers are used for these meanings is a concern to be addressed later, but assume for now that there is a way to distinguish chunks of meaning or distinguish meaning units in the form of m 1, m 2 up to m m, and the columns are word forms. F 1, F 2 up to F n are the word forms. They form the vocabulary of a language. So, the example that we took last time was the example of bank, and the word form bank suppose appears here in F 1, and the word form depend appears here. Now, we know that one of the meanings of bank is depend. I bank on you for your support is an example sentence. So, suppose m 3 is that meaning of bank in the sense of depend, then we will have a tick here below F 1 on the row for m 3, and also a tick in this cell in the row for m 3 and column for F 3. So, thereby we mean that this meaning m 3 in the sense of bank and depend is expressed by words bank word forms, that is bank and depend in this row. Can you think of another word which expresses this meaning? Yes, another word which would express this meaning would be rely. Maybe the word form appears here. So, bank, depend, rely, all of them stand for this depend, bank, rely meaning, and these are the synonyms corresponding to that meaning. On the other hand, if we concentrate on what is happening in the column, what is happening in the column is that the word form is unique, but it has a number of ticks in the column, and each tick corresponds to different meanings or polysemy of the word. For example, the word bank may have a tick here, where M2 stands for the financial institute meaning of bank. That means a place where money is deposited, transacted and withdrawn. Okay. Another meaning of bank could be embankment on the side of a river or a sea or a water body. So, this could be a row here, which means the embankment of a river or a sea, and the word bank will have a tick there also. So, we find three meanings of bank when we go over the or descend the column under bank. One meaning of bank is the financial institution, second is the depend meaning, and third is the embankment meaning. So, notice how the lexical matrix quite elegantly and effectively captures the intersection between the meaning units and the word units of a language. So, this is the intersection of meaning units and the vocabulary of a language. Proceeding further, we know that words can be broadly divided into two parts, content word and the function word. Now, the Wordnet, or for that matter most lexical resources, try to represent very correctly and completely the content words, which means the verbs, nouns, adjectives and adverbs. Adjectives qualify nouns, adverbs qualify verbs, and these are the words which are the content words. They carry the load of the meaning expressed in a communication. We also know that nouns are the most important bearers of meaning, followed by verb, followed by adjective and adverb. While the content words carry the load of meaning, the other group of words expressed here in the form of function word, and it should not be neglected. Their role is supreme in the way they form a sentence. So, I eat rice with a spoon, I eat rice, they are all meaning bearing units. Eat and rice are verb and noun respectively. I is a pronoun, I is given the status of function word, but a very important role is played by the word with, which is a preposition appearing here and shows the relationship between the activity of eating and the entity spoon. Okay. So, with helps to relate the word eat, that is to perform the action of eating, and the noun spoon. Similarly, there are conjunction, pronoun and interjection. Interjections are words like oh, ah, which express exclamation, some kind of emotion. Pronouns are the substitutes for nouns, and conjunctions link two parts of sentences in the form of phrases or even two complete sentences. So, while words are divided this way in the form of different categories, which is a concern of the problem of part of speech tagging, we remember once again that content words are the entities which are expressed in the Wordnet. Now, synsets form the foundation of the Wordnet. I have given here an example of the word house, or I exemplify the concept of synset through the word house. Now, house is shown to have 12 meanings here. The most common meaning of house is a dwelling that serves as living quarters for one or more families. He has a house on Cape Cod. She felt she had to get out of the house. This is the most normal, most frequent and most well understood meaning of house, namely it is a living quarter. Another meaning of house is an official assembly having legislative powers. The legislature has two houses, for example, House of Commons and House of Lords in England. In India, we have Rajya Sabha, Lok Sabha, which are the two houses of the parliament. Similarly, the third meaning is a building in which something is sheltered or located. This corresponds to the structural meaning of house. So, this way different meanings of house are given. You can see also an important meaning of house in the form of family, and this is a good example of synset or set of synonymous words: family, household, house, home, and menage. So, these are synonymous words, and one look at the synset tells you what meaning is conveyed by this set. Okay. So, the moment you see the word family, you know that the word house is being used in the sense of family. Another meaning of house is the sign of the zodiac: star sign, sign, mansion, house, planetary house. This corresponds to the astrological meaning of house. Now, this set of synonymous words forms really the foundation of the Wordnet. The quality of a Wordnet is very largely, to a large extent, decided by the quality of these synsets. Now, these synsets we have already explained before form the nodes of the Wordnet graph, and the semantic relations starting from number 2 with a gap of 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, 5 also is to be omitted. So, number 2 namely hypernymy, hyponymy, 4 namely meronymy, holonymy, 6 entailment and 7 troponymy are the relationships between the synsets. The relations antonymy and gradation are between word forms. So, 1, 3 and 5 are lexical or word to word relationships, rest are semantic synset to synset relationships. The synset is created using 3 principles: the principle of minimality, principle of coverage and principle of replaceability. We had mentioned this before, and I would like to explain this further, so that the foundational understanding of Wordnet is complete through this. Take the word home. John's home was decorated with lights on the occasion of Christmas. And what is the meaning of home here? Here home means the structural meaning of home, which is synonymous with house. It is a structure, a building, and we can therefore say this sentence: John's home or house was decorated with lights on the occasion of Christmas. The other meaning of home is expressed in this sentence here: having worked for many years abroad, John returned home. Here home has the meaning of motherland or one's own country. So, we can see 2 meanings of home here. For house again, we see the first sentence here: John's house was decorated with lights on the occasion of Christmas. So, this is the structure meaning of house. Mercury is situated in the 8th house of John's horoscope. This is the astrological meaning of house. So, we see an intersection of or overlap of meaning between the word home and house as exemplified by this sentence, and then there are these divergences, divergent meanings. One is the meaning of motherland for home, and the other is the astrological meaning of house as given here. So, it is clear that the word house itself is ambiguous. So, if we form a set, a singleton set with house in it, the meaning of this set is not clear. It can mean anything ranging from a living quarter to astrological position to family to legislative assembly and so on. The moment I put in another word home, I have eliminated some meanings like the astrological position or legislative house, because one does not use the word home in that sense. So, those meanings are isolated, but still it is ambiguous, because here it is not clear whether it refers to home, home as a structure, or even home and house meaning family. Okay. So, that these 2 meanings are still existing, and the unique meaning has not emerged for this synset. So, is this the minimal unit? No, because it still has 2 meanings. The moment I insert family in the beginning of the synset, I have eliminated the structural sense of these 2 words, and I have homed on to the family meaning, and therefore, now this has become completely disambiguated, and family and house or family and home would form a minimal unit for giving a unique sense for the synset. Now, there is this coverage principle where we have to introduce words which exist in the language in the with the same meaning. So, the word household was absent here, the coverage principle will insist that this word be introduced and put at the right place in the order of the words. So, family is the most frequent word in the sense of family, household is possibly the second most frequent word. And then there is this principle of replaceability, where the most frequent words in a synset should be able to replace each other in a few sentences at least. So, he comes from an aristocratic family. In this sentence, I can replace the word family with household surely. He comes from an aristocratic household. So, let us then summarize this discussion. Synsets are created using the minimality principle, the coverage principle and the replaceability principle. Now, the synsets can be created in by using two methods. One is from first principles, pick a word and pick all the senses of the word from a good standard dictionary or good standard dictionaries. It is very typical to use more than one dictionary for all the senses. Obtain synonyms for each sense, and this really needs hard and long hours of work. For example, the Hindi Wordnet, which was created at IIT Bombay for last 8 to 10 years, required consulting multiple dictionaries, looking at each word minutely, explaining and discussing its senses threadbare, and then finally deciding which meaning unit that word will go into. Okay. And all possible senses of a word are tried to be captured, and for a sense all possible words are given obeying the coverage principle. So, this is synset creation from first principle. The second method is to create the synsets from the wordnet of another language, preferably in the same family. Pick the synset and obtain the sense from the gloss, get the words of the target language. Often same words can be used, especially for languages in the same family, and then we do translation, insertion and deletion. So, in this methodology, the efforts are little less compared to the method which uses first principles. That is because the meaning units have been sort of pre-decided, and our task is simply to find a set of words which will express this meaning and will form the components of a synset after satisfying the principles of minimality, coverage and replaceability. I illustrate this with an example. Let us take the English synset meaning earthquake. The other words existing in English in this sense are quake, trembler and schism. Here is the gloss for the synset, meaning thereby the explanation for the synset, which is this: shaking and vibration at the surface of the earth resulting from underground movement along a fault plane or from volcanic activity. Now, for this English synset, the corresponding Hindi synset would be bhukamp, bhujal, bhudol, jaljala, bhukamp, 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 jaljala, bhumikamp, bhumikamp. So, these two words bhumikamp and bhumikamp are simply orthographic variations of the same word. Here too, bhukamp and bhu hyphen kamp with a bindi and bhu hyphen ka with half ma and pa. These are orthographic variations of the same word. The word bhukamp is most frequent in Hindi, that therefore, it occupies the first position in the synset. The gloss for this synset is प्राकृतिक कारणों से पृथ्वी के भीतरी भाग में कुछ उथल पुथल होने से ऊपरी भाग के सहसा हिलने की क्रिया. So, this is simply the translation of the English gloss for the synset, and it expresses the concept of earthquake or bhukamp. Now, here is an example sentence which we do not see in the English synset. 2001 में गुजरात में आए भूकंप में काफ़ी लोग मारे गए थे. The translation is many were killed in the earthquake in Gujarat in 2001. Now, if I want to create the synset for Marathi, which is a familially closely related language to Hindi, then what I do is that I assimilate this synset, the meaning of this synset, and completely forget about it after that. As far as Hindi words are concerned, I just remember the meaning, okay, or absorb the meaning. Then for this meaning, I find that there are two Marathi words, Dharanikamp and Bhukamp. Between Dharanikamp and Bhukamp, Dharanikamp is more frequent. So, I place it earlier than Bhukamp. This forms the first word of the synset, and then write down the gloss. Prithvi cha potat dravakshobhun prishthabhag hananachi kriya. So, this is the same gloss which is expressed in English and Hindi. The meaning is that shaking and vibration at the surface of the earth. And the example sentence is also the translation of the Hindi sentence. 2001 साली गुजरात मध्ये झालेल्या धरणीकंपात अनेक लोग मृत्युमुखी पडले. So, this is simply the translation of the Hindi sentence. So, this example should clarify to you the way the synsets of a language are created. The first principle methodology is that we take the words and keep on collecting the senses of the word and then enumerate them one by one. In which order should they be enumerated? They are enumerated in the order of their frequency. The sense which is most frequent is given a lower number in the order. The later senses come one after the other depending on the frequency. Our Synset creation methodology illustrated the salient points of how the synset is created. So, when the Marathi synset was created from Hindi, we simply found two important words in Marathi which express the sense of earthquake and put them in the synset in the right order, and then the gloss and the example translation sentence were translated from Hindi. Now, we move on to semantic relations, and semantic relations, the important fact about them is that they are language independent, and therefore, if semantic relations are created for the wordnets of one language, they can be borrowed into the wordnets of another language. So, the first semantic relation that comes to our notice is the generalization specialization semantic relation. So, the technical name for such relationship is hypernymy and hyponymy. And hyponymy is a relationship between word senses or synsets. X is a hyponym of y if X is a kind of y. Hyponymy is transitive and asymmetrical, hypernymy is inverse of hyponymy. So, hypernymy is generalization, hyponymy is specialization. Lion is a kind of animal, animal is a kind of animate entity is a kind of entity. So, as we go from lion to the entity, we are increasingly moving towards higher and higher level of generalization. And when we come back in the reverse direction, we are going in the hyponymy direction and we are specializing the concept. Next important semantic relation is meronymy and holonymy. This is essentially the part whole relationship. For example, branch is a part of tree. So, between the concept of branch and tree, there is this part whole relationship, meronymy holonymy relationship. So, X is a meronym of y if X is a part of y, and holonymy is the inverse relationship of meronymy. So, kitchen has meronymy relationship with house, house has holonymy relationship with kitchen. Now, notice the set notations here. This means that the relationship is between the concept of kitchen and the concept of house, not between the word kitchen and the word house. It is between the meaning of kitchen and meaning of house. Surely, you can immediately detect and point that this synset for kitchen is not complete. There may be other synonyms of kitchen which will go there by virtue of the coverage principle. Similarly, there are words like home, building, etc., which will go into this synset because those are the synonyms and coverage principle has to be obeyed. Then we come to the lexical relationship of antonymy, which expresses oppositeness in meaning. This is relationship between word forms and not between meaning. Even though the purpose is to capture oppositeness in meaning, Actually, it is established between words. The reason is that words are very choosy with respect to the words they are antonymous with. Okay? Which are the words they will take as antonyms? It depends on many factors like phonetics, word form, word length, etc. Sound plays an important role there. For example, the synset rise and ascend express the meaning of going up, okay, versus fall and descend, which expresses the meaning of going down. However, when we give antonymy relationship, we do not give the relationship between these two synsets, because that leaves open the question of which word is antonymous with which. We know that the antonymy of rise is fall and not descend. The antonymy of ascend is descend, not fall. So, the words by virtue of their phonetic property, sound, and also the property of word length and other features, choose to be biased towards other words in terms of antonymy. Rise is biased towards fall for antonymy, ascend will take descend as antonymy. Moving on, we take up these two relationships of troponymy and entailment as semantic relations. Entailment is the relationship of implication. So, let me write down the entailment relationship. Entailment signifies implication, okay, implication, which is expressed as A implies B, A implies B. So, if we look at the slide, then we understand why entailment is an implication situation. So, the meaning of the word snoring has entailment relationship with the meaning of the word sleeping. Snoring implies sleeping. If somebody is snoring, that means this person is sleeping, but not the other way around. It is possible for an individual to sleep without snoring. So, snoring entails sleeping, not the other way around. Troponymy is also a relationship between verb meanings. Troponymy means manner of, entailment means implication, troponymy means manner of. So, for example, the word limp and strut, which expresses a particular kind of walking, the manner of walking, has troponymy relationship with the meaning of the word walk. Whispering is a manner of talking. So, whisper has troponymy relationship with talk. So, troponymy is a manner of relationships. Sometimes the Wordnet does not separately mention troponymy. Some Wordnets do not explicitly and separately mention troponymy. Instead, they use the word hypernymy itself to mean the manner of relationship. So, hypernymy and troponymy are sometimes synonymously used in Wordnets, but we must keep in mind the fact that troponymy is the manner of relation and is used for verbs, verb meanings, and hypernymy is typically used for noun meanings. So, this is what I said: snoring entails sleeping, buying entails paying. Now, you see there is this interesting point about the entailment being slightly different in these two situations. Snoring entails sleeping, well and good, sure. Buying entails paying, sure. Okay. The activity of buying embeds in it the concept of paying. Buying implies paying, but you see there is this temporality consideration coming up here. Snoring is properly temporally included in sleeping, and inclusion can be in any way. So, snoring typically happens for a duration of time during sleeping. So, snoring is temporarily not completely overlapping with sleeping. So, sleeping temporarily includes snoring, buying also temporarily includes paying. Then there is coextensiveness which obtains for troponymy. So, if limping is a manner of walking, then when a person is limping, he must be walking also, and temporarily limping and walking are coextensive. We cannot have any point in time where limping is happening, but not walking is happening. Okay? So, they are coextensive. Now, verbs and their subtleties form a very important component of lexical resource. Most natural language processing applications need to represent verbs in a very effective way, capturing all its subtleties. So, verbs also can have antonymy relationship between them. We can have opposition of meaning amongst verbs. So, here is this discussion on the slide, opposition amongst verbs. Rise and ascend has opposition in meaning with fall and descend. Similarly, tie and untie are in opposition relationship. Walk and run, of course, has troponymy relationship. Walk and run have some kind of opposition in meaning relationship. Teach and learn, same activity, but different perspective. Rise and fall, motion upward or downward. So, opposition in meaning and the entailment relationship are related to each other. Hit or miss, they entail aiming, and there is this phenomenon called backward preposition. So, if I utter the word hit or miss, that definitely implies that I had taken an aim before. Before I hit or miss something, I must have aimed for something. Succeed or fail entail try. So, these are cases of backward presupposition. There is a causal relationship between verbs, for example, show and see. Okay. So, if somebody shows something to somebody else, then this somebody else would see this something. Okay. So, show causes seeing, give causes having. So, therefore, there is a relationship between causation and entailment also. Giving entails having, feeding entails eating. So, what is the purpose of all this discussion? The purpose of all this discussion is that verbs have implication relationship between them, and this implication or entailment also has different categories under it. Okay? Backward presupposition, causality, temporality, and so on and so forth. So, this is captured very neatly by this taxonomy diagram for entailment. So, you can see here at the root is the entailment, and this entailment be with temporal inclusion or without temporal inclusion, as shown here by plus temporal inclusion and minus temporal inclusion. Temporal inclusion again can be with troponymy or without troponymy. When it is with troponymy, there is coextensiveness, and when it is minus troponymy, there is proper inclusion. And similarly, there is backward presupposition, which is without temporal inclusion, and also cause, this is also without temporal inclusion. So, we know that cause and effect have to be temporally separate from each other. When cause finishes, effect starts. So, temporally effect is after cause. Backward presupposition also implies a sequentiality in time. Succeed and try, for example, untie and tie. When we come to this part of the tree, troponymy and minus troponymy, they have this coextensiveness in time and proper inclusion in time. So, snoring is not a manner of sleeping, that is why minus troponymy, but it has proper time inclusion in the activity of sleeping. Buying has also proper time inclusion in paying, and then there is this coextensiveness between verbs like limping and walking. Limping and walking are temporally coextensive, both have to happen together. Lisping and talking also have to happen together. So, plus troponymy. So, plus troponymy minus troponymy shown here. Backward presupposition and cause are also shown here. Rise and raise. If I raise somebody, the second person rises. If I give something to somebody, then that somebody has this something. Okay. So, this is the cause and effect relationship, and they are never temporally included. Backward presupposition is also of same kind. So, this tree is a useful tree where different relationships between verbs are shown, and as you can see, the taxonomical division is happening in the following way. Entailment is divided into two kinds, as with temporal inclusion and without temporal inclusion. Within that temporal inclusion, once again we have with troponymy and without troponymy. Without temporal inclusion, we have backward presupposition and cause. So, as entailment has different shades of usage and meaning, as entailment is rich in its structure, there is also a kind of richness in the antonymy relationship. So, antonymy can be of different types, like size antonymy, the words small and big indicate that. Quality antonymy, good and bad, indicates that. Size antonymy is warm and state antonymy is warm and cool. An entity can be in a state of warm or it can be cold. There is personality antonymy, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Direction antonymy, east and west. Action antonymy, buy and sell. Amount antonymy, little and a lot. Place antonymy, far and near. Time antonymy, day and night. Gender antonymy, boy and girl. Metonymy also has different kinds, like component object, head and body, staff and object, wood and table, member collection, tree and forest, feature and activity, speech and conference. So, speech, for example, forms part of a conference. Place area, Palo Alto forms part of California. Phase, state, youth forms part of life. Resource, process, pen forms part of writing. Actor, act, physician forms part of the act of treatment. So, these are different kinds of metonymy. Gradation is an interesting relationship which kind of enforces a spectrum for the antonymy relationship. So, you can have state gradation, where childhood, youth and old age forms a spectrum. Youth is in between childhood and old age. So, childhood and old age can be looked upon as antonymous to each other, and in between there are shades of antonymy. Youth, for example, comes between childhood and old age. Similarly, there can be gradation based on temperature, hot, warm and cold. Hot and cold are antonymous, but warm comes as an in between state. Action, sleep and wake are antonymous. Doze, which is neither sleep nor fully awake, neither fully sleeping nor fully awake, is a state in between sleeping and waking. So, when we have discussed the synsets and we have discussed the semantic relationships, we find that the Wordnet actually forms a graphical structure. So, here is a node, a synset for the Wordnet, house and home. House and home is a kind of dwelling or abode. So, dwelling, abode forms a synset, and there is hyponymy relationship between these two concepts. So, dwelling, abode is a generalization of the concept of house, home. House, home has as part backyard, veranda and study. So, these concepts are organized with metonymy relationship with the concept of house and home. Hyponymy is the specialization relationship. So, guest room, hermitage, cottage are different kinds of house, home. So, hyponymy relationship from house and home to guest room. Then dwelling and abode has metonymy with kitchen and bedroom. If the question is why is kitchen and bedroom not kept here with this synset, the reason is that there are other kinds of dwelling and abode which also have kitchen and bedroom as parts therein, and we have to repeat the kitchen and bedroom everywhere. Instead, if we just keep it at one place, namely at the parent, all children would link to this concept by means of inheritance. And you can see in this square box the gloss for house and home, a place that serves as the living quarters of one or more families. So, one can begin ascending this hyponymy hierarchy and finally hit entity, which is like a generic concept subsuming all other concepts below it. Now, in our last part on the discussion on semantic relations, we mentioned metonymy, which is a very old semantic relationship, but still is new in Wordnet. Metonymy is associated with metaphors, which are epitomes of semantics. Our imagination, creativity, intelligence are called to play to the fullest extent when we use metaphor for colorful figurative speech. Metaphors are great indicators of human imagination and creativity. So, we see here a definition of of the word metonymy. Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary defines metonymy as the use of a word or phrase to mean something different from the literal meaning. But metonymy does not mean careless usage. A language incompetent person will not be able to create effective metaphorical examples in the language. So, metonymy is a very important relationship used by people all the time in their writing and speech. What is now aimed for in most of the Wordnet enterprises is to capture metaphorical relationships or metonymy within the Wordnet structure itself. So, we therefore have to understand metonymy. We can obtain insight from the Sanskritic tradition, where there is a fundamental discussion on the power of a word. Words typically have three kinds of usages: Abhidha, Lakshana and Vyanjana. Let us take the example of the word hall. The meaning of hall is expressed by the following sentences. The hall is packed. Here the hall is a physical structure. Now, this is the direct and the most apparent surface meaning of hall. The hall is packed. So, this is an example of Abhidha, the word's most direct and apparent meaning. Lakshana is somewhat metaphorical usage of the word. The hall burst into laughing. So, it is impossible for an inanimate hall, which is walls and the ceiling with the window and the door. It is impossible for such a structure which is inanimate to burst into laughing. What is meant here is the people in the hall. The hall burst into laughing means the people in the hall burst into laughing. So, through the word hall, we indicate its occupants who started laughing, burst into laughing. Vyanjana is the implied unsaid and implied sense. The hall is full. So, if we go to a movie hall and see and hear the sentence, the hall is full, what is unsaid here is that, and so we cannot enter. This is the Vyanjana. So, a word can be used as Abhidha, the direct and apparent meaning; Lakshana, that is metaphorical usage, the hall burst into laughing; and Vyanjana, the implied associated sentence, the hall is full. Metaphors have been extensively studied in the Indian tradition. The technical terms for those are Upaman and Upameya. The former indicates the object being compared and the latter the object being compared with. Okay. So, Upamana and Upameya are concepts standing for object being compared and the object being compared with. So, if I take this example here, Puru was like a lion in the battle with Alexander. So, we have said that Upamana and Upameya have to be used here. So, Puru was like a lion in the battle. Here Puru is Upameya because he is being compared. Compared with what? Compared with lion. So, lion is the Upaman here. Now, concepts like Upamana, Rupak and Atishayukti have been studied in the Sanskrit literary tradition. Upamana is the explicit comparison. Puru was like a king in the battle with Alexander. The word, the preposition like makes the correspondence very apparent, very direct and open. Puru was like a lion in the battle with Alexander. Rupak is implicit comparison. If you drop the word like and appropriately make the sentence grammatical, Puru was a lion in the battle with Alexander. Puru was a lion in the battle with Alexander. Okay. So, Puru was like a lion in the battle with Alexander is not said explicitly here. So, there is implicit comparison, this is known as Rupak. Atishayukti is exaggeration, where Upaman and Upameya both are dropped. The person, the entity against which comparison is being done and the entity which is compared, both are dropped. So, here is a discourse segment, Puru's army fled, but the lion fought on. So, the explicit reference to Puru is dropped here. The lion here co-referentially and implicitly means Puru. So, this is an example of Atishayukti. In modern study, which has happened 1956 onwards through the works of Richards et al., we understand that there are three constituents of metaphor: a vehicle, this is the set of items used metaphorically; tenor, the metaphorical meaning of the former; and ground, the basis for metaphorical extension. So, if I take the phrase the foot of the mountain, here the metaphorical usage is that of the word foot. Typically, we associate foot with an animate entity, animals have foot, birds have foot. So, here when we say foot of the mountain, mountain is inanimate. So, what do we mean? We mean the bottom part of the mountain. The word foot here has been borrowed from the animal domain and used for mountain to create an effect, to have a sparkling example of speech. So, that effect is achieved through the usage of the word foot, which is metaphorical for the mountain. Vehicle is foot, tenor is the lower portion, the metaphorical meaning of the former, and the ground is the spatial parallel between the relationship between the foot to the human body and the lower portion of the mountain with the rest of the mountain. Okay. So, the correspondence here is the spatial parallel between the relationship between the foot of the human body and the lower portion of the mountain with the rest of the mountain. Now, there was this work by a well known semanticist called Haas, who argues and establishes that it is the interaction of semantic fields which gives rise to metaphorical meaning. So, there is core versus peripheral semantic fields, and the interaction of two words in metonymic relation bring in new semantic fields with selective inclusion of features. So, when we use the phrase leg of a table, we borrow the idea of leg from animal domain, but we selectively used features. For example, the leg of a table, it does support and stand. So, thereby it is analogous to leg of an animal, but the analogy stops when we try to see if the leg of a table stretches or moves. So, we continue discussing metonymy and metaphor in the subsequent class.